Flat Earth Andrew. My channel is Friend of Yahweh. It's a YouTube channel. So I am a Flat Earth filmmaker. I've done some music videos. You can look up Round and Curvy, Nevermore. Those are my two top ones.
All right.
And what is your opening statement, please?
Opening statement. The Earth is flat and stationary. The sun, moon, and stars are all very close. We could possibly be dealing with some kind of rear projection with the sun and the moon, but that's up to debate. The community is basically a bunch of free-thinking people who realize we've been indoctrinated from a young age with the whole spinning ball through TV, movies, just the culture. It's just it is what we grew up with.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
We are now questioning that. You've got things like the P900, the Nikon camera that is shooting across the plane. It's bringing boats back over the horizon. That's actually one of the first things that just blew my mind. I was, a friend of mine said people think the Earth is flat. I said that's crazy, and I went to try and debunk it. So basically, anybody who believes in the spinning ball is just somebody who has not tried to debunk flat Earth, and I mean legitimately give it the good,
the good YouTube watching,
the good scientific method, which is it observable? Does it match our observations? Does the official story match our observations?
Can I ask a question, though?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with different theories, but does a theory have to be disproven for it to not be true?
Well, we just look. The whole community is basically we don't like the pseudoscience, which is a bunch of men got together and said, we live on a spinning ball.
Right.
We're spinning 1,000 at the equator. The Earth itself is moving at 67,000 miles an hour. It's part of this whole big system, traveling around the sun, all this movement, yet it doesn't match our observations. So that's all we're saying. And basically, we see too far on the Earth. There's some videos that just came out using infrared from an airplane. The guy is flying in Iowa. He can see the Hudson, Hudson Bay up in Canada using infrared, because infrared takes away the atmosphere.
Okay.
So just brilliant stuff.
Let's
that's a good opening statement from
Father was an astronaut. You were an astronaut aboard which Russian ship?
10 years ago this week.
10 years ago this week.
I flew on the Russian Soyuz up to live for 2 weeks on the International Space Station.
Had to learn a lot of stuff and qualify.
Including Сейчас я знаю русский язык. Yeah, so even the Russian language, which was actually
what is your opening statement?
Well, first I'd like to tell you that I do know that the Earth is round by personal direct observation. I spent 2 weeks in orbit around the Earth. I'm a seasoned explorer. I've been both to the North Pole and to the South Pole to see the 24-hour day and the sun spinning around the Earth's axis. I brought with me a collection of little backyard experiments that any child can go outside and demonstrate to themselves that the Earth is round. In fact, my children were just with me in April at the North Pole, and I have video of
I met Santa.
They're well aware of the Santa myth. We've never deceived our children in that way.
Well, we have. We use Elf on the Shelf.
How do you get anything done around the house? What do you threaten them with?
But I actually think that I find that people who have a flat Earth belief, or a flat Earth claim of belief, I think the majority of them, I believe you believe what you're stating you are, but I believe the vast majority of people who believe this are either trolls, and I spend plenty of time having people contact me about flat Earth claims. I think most of them are trolls. I think those that are not are generally willfully ignorant, meaning purposefully choosing not to see.
Ignorant is not an insult; it is a describer.
No, it's a describer to mean that they're just. But the willfully is a bit of a negative connotation.
Now, quickly, I've seen the accusation you did something with a playing card on the space, and what are you being accused of?
Yeah, so literally, I put all the videos of my time in space on the internet 10 years ago.
Okay, and we have a link to all your documents somewhere on klbjfm.com if somebody wants to see it.
But strangely, only this year, only like 2 weeks ago, did the Flat Earth folks pick up on one of the about 20 magic tricks that I did when I was up in space, because I'm an amateur magician. And one of them that I did is I took a hammer, and I didn't have a feather, so I used a playing card. And I said, if you guys remember the old gravity experiment where you drop a hammer and a feather, and in a vacuum, because of gravity, they would fall at the same rate of speed.
Correct.
And what I did is when I let them go, the hammer floated and the card fell to the ground.
In quotations.
And it fell very fast. And the reason why it fell very fast is I was using a magician's trick. And I will tip it just because it's, for the purposes of this discussion. It was a magician's thread reel, which has a little rubber band in it that winds up the thread. And it yanked it to the floor very quickly.
I used to have one that a piece of stretchy stuff. What's that called?
Elastic.
Went down your arm and sleeve and had a rubber ball, and you could fill a shot glass and then cover it with your hand, and you put the rubber ball, and it would go
pulls
up
out your sleeve.
arm.
Rich, what is one simple, you mentioned tricks that even a child could understand, not tricks, experiments.
Method. Yeah, well, one really easy one is just call a friend who lives on the opposite coast of the United States.
Okay.
Have them go out and stick a yardstick in the ground.
Okay.
And measure the length of the shadow.
All right.
Because
it's going to be different.
Yeah, you can instantly calculate the horizontal distance if it was, it's either flat or curved. And so if it's horizontal, then you would expect the shadows to lengthen or foreshorten by one amount. And if it's curved, you can calculate the length of the shadow foreshortening by another amount. And in fact, you can actually determine the exact diameter of the Earth with incredible accuracy with just a 1 meter ruler. And the ancients did this in the 1500s. They were doing this with wells. You would people who lived near the equator realized that the sun would, looks like on the summer solstice, would put a shadow straight down to the bottom of the well. And if you lived in further north, the shadow couldn't go to the bottom of the well. And so the point is, this exact same process was used as long ago as the Greeks to not only prove the Earth was round, but actually get its precise diameter within a tiny fraction.
So you're
of a
talking
percentage.
about the Eratosthenes experiment, right?
I don't know that word, but it probably could be.
So he was the Greek philosopher who, proved that supposedly we lived on a ball. Are you aware that Neil deGrasse Tyson recently, like within the last few months, said that the same experiment would work if you had a close local sun? So that's...
by the way, Neil deGrasse Tyson is a good friend of mine. I assure you, he was given no evidence that he believed would be...
He said that.
Where is that?
He fights... Neil deGrasse Tyson fights flat earthers all the time. In fact, we were tweeting with each other this morning on the way into here. And
oh, my God. So you live in Austin?
I live in Austin, and I live in New York City. I have a house at both ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, with all due respect, look, flat earthers take the position that... And the reason a lot of us were able to transition so easily into flat Earth is because we already knew that the moon landings and all that and space was all bogus. Okay.
Right.
So with all due respect, it's bogus. I'm not buying it. And you can watch just endless videos of motion capture. They're using
of Richard in space. Is that what you're getting ready to say?
Yeah.
Richard's just a small piece of the puzzle. There's plenty of astronauts that have screwed up.
Do you believe that Richard went into space?
No.
You don't believe? And how much did it cost you?
Tens of millions.
Okay. So
I put my entire life savings into the trip. But what I find humorous about that, of course, is not only is my father an astronaut, and there are now things like the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter can now take pictures of the space debris that's on the moon, including in 1992 I purchased from when the Soviet Union collapsed. I actually purchased one of their lunar rovers called Lunokhod 2. That is still on the moon.
There?
It's still on the moon. And interestingly, it can be used to, it actually has mirrors on it that are still used by modern astronomers to bounce lasers off to determine the distance from the Earth to the moon.
Gotcha.
And so, so not only can we actually see the actual rover on the moon directly.
I don't think Andy's listening. He wants us to look up a website. Well, I can do it over here. Andy.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right.
Keep talking.
Okay.
All right.
Keep talking.
So it turns out that this device that I happen to own that is still sitting on the moon can, I presume Andy believes that lasers and radio waves exist. So first of all, Andy, do you agree that it works?
Let's get him back over to the microphone. He's having Matt look something up online.
I'm having Matt look up moon transit, which is one of the most ridiculous pieces of footage we've ever seen.
Okay.
But
it's supposedly real.
But do you agree that the radio...
Clouds do not change.
Do you agree that radio waves work? Do you believe that we are using a technology referred to as radio today?
Look, satellites don't exist. They're high altitude weather balloons, period.
So what is that dish out that window aiming at?
Balloons over the city.
And is it a bit odd that all of them all over the country aim at the exact same place in space that is, a few 100,000 miles away?
Where are the balloons?
Why do they aim to the exact same place?
Because that's where a satellite is sitting out there in space. That's because that transmitter right there happens to be where the feeds, the
Like
news
this.
feeds, come into the station.
So why do airplanes drop off in the southern hemisphere?
Why do airplanes drop
Off a radar?
Explain yourself.
Well, if you're tracking an airplane, they all drop off in the southern hemisphere. If we have satellites going all over, you're telling me there's one satellite, like a master satellite, they're all pointing towards?
No.
There's a satellite attached to that direction.
In at geosynchronous orbit above the equator of the Earth, that dish, which does not rotate, that dish is pointing at a place in space.
For example, when satellite television first came out before they had the current internet,
C-band.
The dish to change channels would have to
sleuth.
you got to listen, Andy. You got to listen.
Hang on a second.
A dish would change directions to get a certain channel because it was changing satellites back in the day.
Look, I want you guys to pass around this video. This is the most ridiculous piece of evidence.
Can we put it on the?
Throw it up on the big screen. We'll throw it up there.
All right, I will. I will do that.
If you YouTube
bossy
Moon
pants.
Transit, NASA Moon Transit, this is supposedly real footage.
Okay. What are we
First of all, I
looking
can
at?
immediately tell you it's not. Just that still.
Exactly. So you're looking at something saying that NASA put this out. This is official.
No, I don't know.
Hold
what
on,
this
the
is.
moon
We'll
just
see.
disappeared.
But it could be a
Read about
model.
it.
It could be a model of something that they're
Well,
trying
look
to
at those
prove.
clouds changing. My goodness.
That's
Wow.
not a real picture, Andy.
That's right. And NASA says this is real. So you guys don't do any, just cursory basic research. It's so easy
What
to
is
disprove
this?
NASA.
Well, true. Whether that's,
What's
by the
the-
way, real footage or not.
Where
What
were
is
the
your point
camera
of showing
positions?
this? What is your
why,
point?
why aren't the clouds changing? Because everybody knows it's fake. Just look
No,
at
but
it.
by the way, if
You just said
let's
it's
assume.
fake.
Well, first of all, who filmed that? If it's real,
It's from us.
No, it says this animation. This is from NASA.
an animation.
It's an animation.
But even if it is,
All right, I'll
the
stop
point
later.
is,
No, it's not. Read
the point
about
is,
it.
even if this is presumed real or not, the amount of time that would have to the moon would pass this frame is only a matter of minutes, and so therefore you wouldn't expect the clouds to change.
What we're
in any
seeing is the
significant
moon go over the face of the earth, and Andy's claiming the clouds don't move.
degree. Which I'm going
At all.
like, but you
what
wouldn't
is the-
expect it to, because the clouds would have to move thousands of miles for it to move a pixel.
Right.
I'm not sure what they're trying to prove with that.
I don't
If that
either.
is animation, what they're trying to.
Well,
it is
but even if it's
animation.
real,
Well,
who knows?
let me ask the astronaut,
Former astronaut.
former astronaut.
Once an astronaut,
Who-
always
whose
an
dad was
astronaut.
an
Are you aware
Exactly.
Are you aware of the angular resolution of our eyes and perspective? You are,
generally
of course.
speaking,
Okay,
yes.
so angular resolution is basically it's just a law of as an object gets further away. Let's say a car, and it's a mile away, 10 miles. It's gonna disappear. There's a crater on the moon that's supposedly 30 miles wide. The angular resolution says that it disappears, that 30-mile, we can see it with our naked eye. We can look up and see it, right?
I don't know.
The
I don't know what crater you're
moon-
talking about.
The moon is 38,000 miles away, we're told.
No.
238,000 miles
That's better.
away, right? So it's really far.
Okay.
And
Yes,
yet
it is
we
really
can
far.
see this crater with our eye. Did you know that crater, based on the law of
so-
angular resolution, hold on, it disappears at 400,000 feet? That's 75 miles. That crater is gone.
I have
You
no-
cannot see it 75
Without actually knowing
miles
what crater you're even talking about, this is who knows?
Well, it's 30,
Is
30
it in the
miles
Sea
wide.
of Tranquility?
It's 30 miles wide. I'm giving you the numbers, and you want to jump past it because that's real science. Your eye can only see an object so far away.
Well,
So
that's
at
true.
30
Your
miles away,
iPhone actually has higher resolution than your eye is capable of seeing. So yes,
at
I
30
agree that
miles
there are things
away,
you
the
can't
crater
detect.
disappears. At 75 miles away, which is 400,000 feet, the crater will
I'm not
disappear.
smart enough
Now,
to.
you
So
mentioned-
hold on.
again,
Tell
you're-
me how that relates to flat Earth.
Well, it proves that the moon is close.
And how
Okay.
close would you estimate it to be? Most of us have learned 250,000, right? Miles, right?
Yeah,
Just
how
generally
far
speaking.
I would
saying?
say 6 feet. Oh no, that's chewy.
How far and why haven't we traveled there if it's so close?
Oh, we've traveled there. We've gone to the moon. We've gone to the moon probably every day. They're doing all kinds of observations.
Okay, but how
on
close?
it.
Can you give me an
It's
estimate of how
close.
in
It's
miles?
close.
How close?
So do you believe space aliens exist, by the way?
No, absolutely not.
But how many miles away is the moon in your
Do
estimation?
you? I mean, most people do believe space aliens exist.
how
I
far
don't
away
believe
is
aliens
the
have
moon?
visited
Hold on.
Earth.
Answer Bob's
How
question.
far
and then we'll
away
go
is
to
the
Richard.
moon generally, ballpark miles or knots or whatever?
Well, according
I
to
don't
the
know.
official story, it's
Parsecs, I don't know.
238.
No,
No,
but
but what do you agree?
you're here to educate us.
Oh, on the flat Earth model?
No, how far is the moon from flat Earth?
In the flat Earth model.
Yes,
in your mind.
The moon is, it's really up to debate because, like I said, we could possibly
Give me ballpark. We're looking ballpark.
Give a number.
30,000 feet.
And
30,000 feet.
Airplanes fly higher than that.
Do they?
Even before I went into space. Well, first of all, commercial airliners fly
39,
about almost 40.
According to you.
Then of course I've also been on the Concorde, which flew over 50, 60. Then I've also been up on MiG 25s, which go to like 85.
Could you stop making us feel like our life
like
is
we're doing nothing?
And then of course in space you're about 250 miles up on the International Space Station.
So why is it that billions have circumnavigated east to west, but only 2 people, one of them is related to the Queen, went north to south?
Can I ask
going this way?
a quick question? At this 30,000 foot moon,
Yeah.
how big is?
Don't quote me on that. I mean, that's flat
just
earthers
trying to-
are willing to
How
admit
big
that
is
we
the
don't
moon?
know everything.
How big is the
We're
moon?
trying to figure this out.
No,
How
but
big
And by the way,
if I may.
nobody.
Let
Let
me
me clear
go
one.
ahead.
I just
Stop.
real quickly want to know how big is the moon? Do you think?
I don't know.
Okay, I just want to know why the moon itself hasn't disappeared at 30,000 feet.
See, exactly. We could be dealing with some kind of rear projection. But let me clear one thing up.
A
because-
giant rear projector?
Well, if you have like a glass dome or a
Truman
firmament,
Show.
yeah.
Oh, I
exactly.
gotcha.
And when you put a light behind it, then then it becomes very relative to your position on the Earth. Where the sun is. That's why it's very hard to triangulate the moon and the sun. People have tried it. It's very difficult. Okay,
All right.
so
Well,
he has some pictures. I'd like to clear this up.
Okay.
No flat earther believes that we live on a pancake that's flying through space. This
don't.
is misinformation put out, to make it seem ridiculous. The Flat Earth Society is controlled opposition to make it seem ridiculous. If
Okay,
you
so
search
so you believe the ice wall is less ridiculous than the pancake,
ice
right?
wall,
So you believe the ice wall model, correct?
it's not a wall, it's a shoreline.
Okay.
There's an edge, a shoreline, a
Okay.
cliff face, which
Okay.
we've all seen photos of, right?
That
We have?
that retains the
so
water.
by the way, are you also asserting?
Yes.
Are you
Okay,
also
Bob.
asserting that you don't think I've been to the North Pole and the South Pole?
I think you've been to a location that they are calling the South Pole.
And at
Yeah,
that location
dumbass.
where I lived for a month,
You did not see a
sun-
24-hour sun. You did not see a 24-hour sun. Where is the footage? Where's the hundreds of...
I'm sorry,
There's
Andy.
tons of
footage.
Andy, hold on.
No, there's not.
Andy,
No,
Andy,
There's tons of footage
not.
like this.
Andy, I've
Where you take a picture every hour and
Andy,
you get this 24-hour picture of the sun.
if I may.
All the time.
in
Andy,
Antarctica?
Andy,
Yes.
In the
I've
South?
spent a lot of time, 3 or 4 times in northern England in the summer.
Oh, here he goes with the brags.
No,
He
in the
loves
north.
stories.
In the north,
And
yes,
hold on,
there is a 24-hour
hold on.
sun.
And the sun in England doesn't go down till almost 11 o'clock at night.
There
And
is
that's
a
in the
sun
summer.
in the 24. There's a 24-hour sun in the north.
But by the way,
Yes.
there is at the South Pole also.
But listen.
Where's the footage?
I've been to the
There's
South
time
Pole
lapses on
twice.
YouTube.
Where's
I
the
have my
footage?
own time
Like,
lapses of it.
Where's
There's
the footage?
tons of them on the internet. There's tons
No,
and
there's
tons.
not.
Yes, there is.
There's
Hold on,
tons of
hold on,
24-hour
Andy,
sun in the
Andy.
north, but not in the south.
I know Richard is a very honorable man. He's been doing the show for many years. I've even worked for him, doing voice work years ago. He doesn't love me anymore, but anyway. If he says he has seen a 24-hour sun, why can't you believe a man who's an honest man telling you that what he thinks is the truth?
Ready for punchline? Because he's an astronaut.
Oh, so astronauts are part of a conspiracy.
Well, absolutely. They're not going into space.
Okay,
That's for damn sure.
Richard is a video game developer who paid, and by the way, it sounds like you've wasted a lot of money.
Yeah.
He paid to go on a Russian spaceship. It wasn't his career. His dad was an astronaut, but he's a video game developer.
Here in town. So
What
when
can
did
I say?
so when did these people get indoctrinated? So there's 7 of us who have flown privately. One's from Iran. One's from
Are you sure you
South
weren't
Africa.
in a high altitude plane?
I'm pretty damn sure that the 3.5 G's of acceleration over 8.5
Okay,
minutes.
listen, I'm going to break. No talking during the break. No, because I want everything on the air.
Peace
right?
and love.
And thank
All
you,
right. We got a little Ringo?
Andrew. Thank you, and Richard Garrett. Can you
course.
hang on? We'll
Of course.
do another 15 minutes or so. You're listening to the Flat Earth Debate with Dudley and Bob and Matt on 93.7 KLBJ. And you're telling me to sweep the quarter hour and break at 9:01? You can. Okay, sit back down, Andrew. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. We can keep going till 9:01. How's that? All right. Who has the floor next? Did you want to ask him some questions or anything?
Sure.
You had a list of questions, and I think a lot of Richard's stuff we're putting up online, at least the PDF or something. He came in with a lot of.
We can't understand most of it, but
he came in with a lot of paperwork that this conspiracy people gave. You all right, Andrew? You put your head down a little bit. You all right? You're doing good, man.
Yeah,
you're doing
we're
all right.
not against you.
I think he's frustrated with us though, because we're not hearing.
I'm
him.
frustrated with myself because it's like once you get in here and you got all these opinions going left and right, it's hard to
make a point.
Yeah, it's hard to talk every morning. It's hard to convince anybody in this room anything. But don't think you're in. We're not your enemy. We're really not. So, what are your questions you wanted to ask Andrew? Well, hold on. You had whose turn is it?
It didn't matter.
All right. Yeah. What questions do you have for him?
Are we on it?
Yeah, we're on.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
okay,
we're not back. We're going to sweep till 9:01.
Oh, great. Okay. Then in that case, yeah. So, if I presume you believe that the geographic places in the southern hemisphere exist. You know, the southern tip of Africa, Australia, those places exist, obviously.
Yeah.
And you can go on the internet and you can book a cruise that will take you, for example, from the tip of South America to the tip of Africa to over here to Australia. Touches actually in Antarctica briefly and back around. And so you can book that cruise, and it takes about a month. And interestingly, you can do a similar cruise around the Arctic Ocean that goes around from Russia to Canada and all the other places there. And by the way, it takes about a month to go approximately the same distance. And so, under these, first of all, do you believe that those two businesses exist? That you can buy a cruise ship to take you on those kind of tours?
I think it's really sketchy. Very sketchy. And it's really expensive. So that right there, you cut out a lot of people. There is a problem with the flight plans. If you look at this flat earth brochure that I made that has 10 proofs the earth is flat, one of them is plane flights. We've got hundreds of flights every day that make fuel stops that make no sense on a globe. In other words, they keep coming up from like Australia. They come all the way up to like Los Angeles, and then they go all the way down to Argentina when they could just go straight across the ocean from Australia to Argentina. That's because it makes perfect sense. It's a straight line on the flat earth map. And if you look at the jet streams, if you compare flat earth to a globe, it doesn't make sense on a globe. It makes perfect sense on a closed system with the North Pole in the middle on the flat earth, all the continents spreading out. And Antarctica is really just an ice shore that is everywhere south. So,
and what is beyond that shore, by the way?
Well, Admiral Byrd said there was extra land that was actually hospitable. That's Admiral Byrd who did the expedition down there, and he said it on. You can watch it on YouTube. He said it in an interview.
Well, he did throw out some flags on some land in Antarctica and try to claim it for the United States. But I don't think I assure you, he was not a proponent of the flat Earth. He was just trying to claim some of the land for America.
This was the early days where people could actually think for themselves and weren't completely controlled. And he went down there.
I'm trying to find Admiral Byrd's YouTube channel, but I'm not able to find it.
He's a little old. It's a little old.
It was called Operation Fishbowl, and it was under the project name Dominic, which means of the Lord. So you have Fishbowl of the Lord. Just a nice little tidbit for you there.
And how about the fact that Mercury and Venus, which are closer to the sun than the Earth, and because the Earth is the center of our solar system, that Venus and Mercury, as they go around the sun, they come in front of the sun and behind the sun. And you can see them when they're going away from us on the backside. You can see them have phases of the moon, just like the moon would have. And when they go behind it, you can see it disappear. And when they go in front of it, you can see the dark spot of Mercury and Venus as it goes in front. On the other hand, if you try to do that with Mars or any of the outer planets, they go on the far side of the Earth. So they go behind the sun, but then they also go behind the Earth. They never transit between the Earth and the sun. And again, that's something that anybody in their backyard with a telescope can observe easily.
What are you trying to prove there? I'm not really following.
That the sun is the center of the solar system. Do you agree with that?
No, the sun is just moving over us. When it rises, it's coming closer due to perspective. So there's lots of videos you can watch.
The sun's not a projection, though? I mean, you've talked about the projection.
We don't know what the sun is, but Tesla thought we lived in a very electric universe. I tend to agree. There could be plasma going on, so there's a lot of plasma theory that people are talking about. But how does the moon, let me ask you as an astronaut, how does the moon, during its full cycle, when it's full, How does a single source illumination from single light source like the sun shining onto a sphere, how does it light it up edge to edge? Can you please explain how that works?
Why is that a problem for you?
Because we are told that the phases of the moon is caused by the angle at which the sun bounces off.
It has to do with the perspective. It has to do with the perspective. We could set it up here in this room. We could say that one of the lights overhead is casting a shadow. Compared to or is lighting this bottle. The lights to my right are lighting the right-hand side of this bottle more than the left-hand side of the bottle.
Look, everybody knows.
And so as I look at it, this side is bright and this side is dim. But if I move it to this side, the bottle is now away from me from the lights, and now the full face of this bottle is lit.
So how? I mean, I'm asking everybody. How does the moon be lit edge to edge? It proves its own light source. And if you measure,
it's not always lit edge to edge.
In the full moon,
well,
it's perfectly full.
Andy, it's hard to respond to you when we believe that men went to the moon and know that it's not a light source.
He knows that people are going to the moon every day.
So we can't argue that point, and none of us are going to argue in here scientifically. We're shock jocks, as you called.
But how many people do you think are part of this conspiracy? So there's been 550 people.
I want you to answer the moon. I want everybody to go around the room and answer the moon.
Can you guys hang on?
Yes.
All right, and I'll try to figure out what question you're asking, and we're going to come back and do a wrap up segment. Flat Earth theory, and when we last left the show, and hang on because we still have 3-day Southwest, 3-day ACL passes, and what else was the big one? Third row WWE coming up. You held up your water bottle, Andrew, and you were trying to get everybody. What were you trying to?
Can I ask the question for you?
Sure.
Because I think it's a legitimate question, and I think there may be some science behind the answer. I think, Richard, what Andrew was asking, in a full moon phase, considering that the middle of what we see as the full moon, the middle of the moon would theoretically be closer to Earth than the edges of that full moon phase. Why isn't there a hot spot when we look at a full moon? Why does it look evenly lit? Why isn't the center of the full moon phase?
It's lit edge to edge, and so you have a single light source, which is the sun, pointing at a sphere, which is the moon. And so,
do you not believe the moon is a sphere?
It could be.
But he's saying, why isn't it a little dimmer around the edges?
No,
I'm saying the moon is self-illuminating.
And it probably is.
It's a light. It is self-illuminating, and you can measure moonlight. Moonlight, in direct moonlight, is actually colder than the shade under a tree.
Moonlight feels right.
What did you just say?
He thinks
moonlight is actually colder. It's been measured.
You're saying the moon casts a cold light.
That's right. Just like the sun casts a hot light, and in the shade of the sun, it's cooler. Well, in the moon, it's actually colder in direct moonlight than if you were standing in the shade of the moon.
But by the way, this is another thing that any child go out and disprove. That statement is trivially disprovable.
No, it's not.
You can go
let
out.
him.
You can go out. You can go out, and if what you're saying is that moonlight is colder than the shadow, than something in the shade, you can take 2 thermometers. Go out at night.
Everybody's done that. That's why I'm saying it.
But if that were true, that's just silly talk, to be frank.
To the listeners, go look it up.
Can I ask you a question real quick, Andrew, that has very little to do with science? But you would admit that you're bringing in what would be kind of a newer way for humanity to see their existence, correct?
Right, and that's why...
So why is it that you don't approach it like how a teacher generally would in a class, and you say, I have some stuff, and here are some experiments we can do? You have an extremely condescending attitude, which is that we're all dumbasses for not getting that we haven't watched the same YouTube videos you are. If I were to go to college and pay, and then a professor, when I walked in, immediately was just like, all right, have you read these books? You haven't read these effing books? And so, do you understand why it's hard for people to grasp what you're saying, other than the fact that what you're saying is all falsifiably, I can't speak anymore.
Well, I just told the listeners, go decide for yourself. Go out.
Sure. That seems to be your answer to everything. Because what you keep saying is, I can't prove what I believe. You go read.
I could get the thermometers and put one over here and one over here. You can use the high-tech device that points the laser, right?
Yeah.
The gun.
Okay.
You can spot check temperature with that gun.
Okay.
Anybody
but
can get that.
When the moon is shining, it's covering everything within your vision. There's no spot to walk over to the moon.
No, but there's a shadow under the tree.
Yeah, so
Okay.
shadow is what I'm
the
saying.
moon would
warmer.
still cast a shadow, and
Right.
so
Right.
what
And
he's saying is that
It's cooler in the
it
shades
creates
of the
coolness. No, he's saying the moon light creates cold.
It's colder. Yeah.
When would light create cold?
It wouldn't, because it's electromagnetic radiation, which by definition, will, if any, it's either going to be reflected or absorbed. Anything that's absorbed is going to create heat, and the thing that absorbed it.
Right,
So,
and we are told that the moon reflects, what we're seeing is reflected sunlight, so it should be warmer in the direct moonlight.
whether or not,
versus
by
in
the
shade.
way, it was reflected light or it was its own light source, any light source, that light source on the ceiling of this room
Makes it hot.
is going to warm up the surface of this piece of wood. If you turn off those lights, the wood here in front of us will get cooler because there's no electromagnetic radiation.
Exactly.
warming it.
You just proved my point. So why is moonlight colder? And why
It's
is
not
it?
It's not. He was talking
not.
about. He was talking about
All
light.
all
rays.
light, all electromagnetic radiation of any kind under any wavelength that gets absorbed by something will warm it up.
Why do you keep looking at me and saying help?
I'm
Do
saying
you think
help.
that I?
What
Do you
help?
think?
I
Do you
tried
think
to
in
help.
all? Do you think in my 2 years of or 4+ years of trolling you over the years? Do you think that I'm on your side?
Okay, so-
I don't believe.
so-
I don't believe that there's an anchor on top of a mountain that proves that the Ark existed. That was the first thing you brought in here. I do
No,
adore
not
you.
it.
I actually adore you. I like having you in here because I like you as a person.
Hey, so I wanna
But I don't
talk
believe
about
anything you bring in.
Okay.
Wait,
okay.
what
here's
about
what-
edge-to-edge
Richard Garrett.
illumination?
Here's what I want to talk about. So, just before I came down here, my kids go to school in New York. So I took them out Saturday night or Sunday night.
You
Get my
never
first
come
night.
to see us again, are you?
And of course I am. And we went out, and I get these. There's apps that people have written that track all the satellites. And one of the things you can do when you track satellites is that right at sunrise or sunset, or just before the sun comes up, or just after it goes down, things that are high up in the sky, especially like near Earth orbit, are still illuminated by the sun, even though it's shadow where you are. And what that means is that creates a circumstance where it's actually easy for you to look up in the sky and see that satellite. And so since they're all tracked mathematically, they all have orbits that are predictable, I have these apps that anybody can go download on the App Store, there's dozens of them, that track satellites and give you a text message whenever one, usually right after sunset or just before sunrise, is going to be in view coming across the sky. And it tells you exactly what direction to look.
I've
exactly
done that
what
with the
angle above.
space station. I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
that. I've
That's
seen
what I
that
did.
go.
I showed
I know.
I showed my
Andrew.
kids. I showed my kids the ISS when it came by. Just the
Right,
other
and
day
it's
from New York.
always a bright light, and it stays a bright light
No.
even after the sun goes down.
No, it doesn't. It only happens right at.
Can I ask you a question, Andrew, that has nothing to do with the flat Earth?
What?
Is it hard to change your mind about something? For example,
No, I
used
used to believe in aliens, and now I know that it's bogus.
That's weird because I don't believe in religion or anything else, but I still question what UFOs are. But that's for another show.
Well,
But-
UFOs are
but
just
for
high
example,
technology
For
that's
example,
being hidden
for
from
example,
us.
you do understand that YouTube is the bastion of conspiracy. For example, loose change, which people would go, "You got to see this. The government blew it up." And it's like, no, that's somebody's opinion, and all documentaries are trying to sway you in one way or another. But is it tough for you to change your mind about things?
Absolutely not.
No? Okay. All right.
How thick is the Earth?
Now you were
in
showing
there?
your water bottle, and what was that you were trying to
No,
do?
my whole I was joking because the astronaut, what's your name again?
Richard Garrett.
Richard was holding up his bottle and trying to explain. So please explain why the moon
We call
is
him Astronaut Rick, by the way.
why astronaut Rick is the moon illuminated edge to edge when it has a light source, which is the sun. And when you're talking about a sphere, you would always have a dark trailing, where the light is not hitting.
So I think here's my interpretation of your question, which is if the moon was the diameter of my water bottle and there was a truly single point light source that was fairly close to it, that it could only illuminate, say, a quarter of. If I put it really close to it, it's only going to illuminate, a small amount before the tangent of the light can't illuminate the sides. Is that what you're suggesting?
And right, and what you're going to now say is that because the moon is way over here, all of a sudden the tangent doesn't exist?
No.
BS!
No,
That's
But
not
you
science.
know that
I didn't finish. Look, I just framed your question for you in a way that would be understandable.
Okay.
Let me answer it. Which
Let's
is,
hear it.
first of all, not only is the sun very far away, which pushes the tangents quite far out to the edges, but also the sun is not a point light source. It is 3 degrees approximately of your view looking out. The sun is quite large despite its distance, and so that's why if you look at the shadow of your finger on the ground, there's something called an umbra and a penumbra. In fact, just by chance, I happen to have a different diagram here that's showing you the the darkest, the completely shaded part of the shadow behind an object goes narrower behind it. But because it's 3 degrees wide, there's a widening shadow behind it. So you can light the limbs of it because it's not a point light source. The sun is a wide.
But wait a minute.
I'm not buying that at all.
Just the last few minutes, we thought the moon is a light source.
That's what he thought.
No, that's what he
That's
thought.
what I
Okay, and that's why you see you.
No.
The sun is so much larger than the moon. We're not talking about a flashlight.
Right,
that
and there
we're
must
pointing
be,
at
I mean, you would have to illuminate the sides, the backs, to fully illuminate an object. Do you know how many light sources you would need? So I'm not
One
buying
sun.
it, I'm sorry, that's not an answer.
Yeah,
It's
but the
not an
sun-
answer.
But
The
it is
sun-
an
the
answer.
sun-
It's just an answer you're not buying.
The
Do
sun-
you understand the difference?
Hold on, the sun is quadrillions. I don't know another number brighter than anything else.
But
what
it's
heats
not
our
its
planet.
brightness. But it's actually not its
It's our
brightness. But what illuminates the full limb of the moon has nothing to do with its brightness. It has to do with its diameter. It's because it's not a point light.
Gotcha.
It's because it's wide, and so it acts like a bank of lights that have some of it lighting from the left.
It
and some of
must
it
be
lighting
like a
from the right.
flat screen TV that's curved and then comes around the sides.
Andrew,
like
what
this.
was the one
It's a
thing?
joke.
What was the one thing that's you can't listen? You can't have a scientific argument by saying
By saying
something's
things
a
a
joke.
joke. I
But if
agree.
you snap, what was the thing that snapped in your head and said you believe this? The one thing.
Well,
you remember
okay,
that
so
point?
the curvature calculator that we are told, based on the curvature of our Earth, so for the observer, it's 8 inches per mile squared. So it's a formula. Okay, so if a boat is 10 miles away, that's 10 times 10. 10 times 10 times 8 is equal to, that's 800 divided by 12. That's 66 feet of drop that we should see. And that's why we're told, well, boats go over the curve around 8 miles because, you know, they're gonna be gone, right? So how is it that boats that are 50, 60 miles out, 30 miles out, we're pulling them back with the P900?
So first of all,
You can't answer.
yes, you can. So first of all, the experiments people try to do on either side of this subject by taking a photograph of things that are very close to the surface of the Earth are problematic because of the viscosity, because of the atmosphere itself.
Yeah.
That they will provide a lensing effect, and so just like mirages show up in the desert,
Yeah.
you can see those sort of things. But for example, you know, there are parts of the Earth where where for example on Lake Pontchartrain.
Wow, so that is just atmospheric distortion. So Soundly posted that. This is Soundly. He's a ball earther and he's a big YouTube
Oh
guy.
my God! Like
Ball
a ball
golfer.
golfer.
And this is wow. The Earth
By the way,
is
you
so curved. I mean, I thought when
but
we
you
went
can
up
go
in a
walk out there.
balloon and
Hold
airplane.
on.
Hold on.
The engineers who made that bridge had to make adjustments
Yes.
for that bridge to go over the curve.
This
Exactly
has already been
right.
debunked.
So
it's
hold
so
on.
flat.
So
it's
the,
ridiculous.
Let me ask, so the engineers who built the bridge over Lake Pontchartrain, which I've been over, they're part of the conspiracy to make it curved.
Well, so-
no, engineers they don't take into account the curve of the Earth. You can talk to any one of them. It does not.
You talk to a lot of them.
I've got a phone
Talk to
number.
lots and lots of them.
512-834-0937 if you're an
He's
engineer.
He's holding up a picture of Lake Pontchartrain. Look at that curve. Hold that up for Matt. Show everybody.
Yeah, man.
Look at this
Yeah.
curve. That's
Right.
I mean, that's over just a few miles. Wow, the Earth is curved. My goodness. So no, something else is going on here because we know that
Okay,
the
so
Earth is not curved.
What
that
I'd
much.
like to move to
Is it disappointing to know that you never went to space?
yeah, I know, man. I spent all that money on nothing
Yeah.
to be fooled,
You've wasted a ton of dough,
to join the
Did
Illuminati,
they
to join the
roofie
conspiracy.
you? Were you roofied?
So what I find
Yeah, for
interesting
for
is-
2 years he was
is-
roofied training.
when people have these complicated to construct belief systems that are obviously, you know, reality is internally self-consistent. You analyze things from a wide variety of angles and you'll ultimately come up with the same answers. Anything that is less likely to be true is harder to square all the data together when you take it in totality. Obviously, the vast majority of humanity believes the Earth is round, and the vast majority of them believe the Sun is the center of the solar system, et cetera, et cetera. And so when people make a claim, like, for example, that astronauts are all part of a conspiracy, and therefore I am, for example, part of this conspiracy, which I'm sort of honored to be considered part of, you know, you have to go like, well, okay, well, how big does this conspiracy have to be? You know, not only is it the 500 people that went to space, but it has to be the tens of
families.
thousands of people who helped put them in space.
Their,
There's got to be
their families and friends.
It's Gerald Posner's book about the Kennedy assassination. I used to believe there was a.
Okay.
I sat and watched the movie that Oliver Stone did, and I cried, and I go, oh my God. I read Posner's book. And his sections about conspiracy theory and how many people would have to be able to keep the secret
forever.
for it to leak out, and that's why most conspiracy theory is flawed. Not yours, Andrew. I'm talking about all conspiracy theory.
But it also just goes like, think about even our enemies. Why would North Korea and Russia and all these other people, be happy to help keep everybody with the Kool-Aid? They think that their national interests are somehow better served by letting America claim that it landed on the moon, which of course they did also with probes and rovers, including the one I own. It's just the layers to which the conspiracy has to go, including your satellite television providers have to all be part of the conspiracy. Your cell phone providers all have to be part of the conspiracy.
No, they don't. That's ridiculous.
Yes,
Why do they have to be a part of it? They're just using the technology.
Using which technology?
Balloon and
Hold
airplane.
on. The engineers who made that bridge had to make adjustments
Yes.
for that bridge to go over the curve.
This
Exactly
has already been debunked.
So
it's
hold
so
on.
flat.
So
it's
the,
ridiculous.
let me ask. So the engineers who built the bridge over Lake Pontchartrain, which I've been over, they're part of the conspiracy to make it curved.
No, engineers never, they don't take into account the curve of the earth. You can talk to any one of them. It does not.
You talked to a lot of them.
I've got a phone number.
Lots and lots of them.
512-834-0937 if you're an
He's
engineer.
He's holding up a picture of Lake Pontchartrain. Look at that curve. Hold that up for Matt. Show everybody.
Yeah, man.
Look at this curve. That's
Right.
that's over just a few miles. Wow, the earth is curved. My goodness. So no, something else is going on here because we know that the earth is not curved.
What I'd like to move to
Is it disappointing to know that you never went to space?
Yeah, I know, man. I spent all that money on nothing.
Yeah.
To be fooled,
You've wasted
or
a ton of
to
dough,
join the Illuminati, to join the conspiracy.
Were you roofied?
So what I find
Yeah, for
interesting
2 years he was roofied training.
when people have these complicated to construct belief systems that are obviously, reality is internally self-consistent. You analyze things from a wide variety of angles and you'll ultimately come up with the same answers. Anything that is less likely to be true is harder to square all the data together when you take it in totality. Obviously, the vast majority of humanity believes the Earth is round, and the vast majority of them believe the Sun is the center of the solar system, et cetera, et cetera. And so when people make a claim, like, for example, that astronauts are all part of a conspiracy, and therefore I am, for example, part of this conspiracy, which I'm sort of honored to be considered part of, you have to go like, well, okay, well, how big does this conspiracy have to be? Not only is it the 500 people that went to space, but it has to be the tens of thousands of people who helped put them in space.
Their families and friends.
It's Gerald Posner's book about the Kennedy assassination. I used to believe there was a. I sat and watched the movie that Oliver Stone did, and I cried, and I go, oh my God. I read Posner's book. And his sections about conspiracy theory and how many people would have to be able to keep the secret for it to leak out, and that's why most conspiracy theory is flawed. Not yours, Andrew. I'm talking about all conspiracy theory.
But it also just goes like, think about even our enemies. Why would North Korea and Russia and all these other people, be happy to help keep everybody with the Kool-Aid? They think that their national interests are somehow better served by letting America claim that it landed on the moon, which of course they did also with probes and rovers, including the one I own. It's just the layers to which the conspiracy has to go, including your satellite television providers have to all be part of the conspiracy. Your cell phone providers all have to be part of the conspiracy.
No, they don't. That's ridiculous.
Yes,
why do they have to be a part of it? They're just using the technology.
Using which technology?
They're launching their own satellites. They're launching their own satellites. Well, if they claim they're launching satellites, so you're saying they're launching balloons.
All you have to
but they have to be part of the conspiracy to not admit that it's a balloon.
You just have to have higher ups who are. You compartmentalize all of your departments.
All right, but a quick
people
question.
At NASA that have gone
so
public
everyone who goes to engineering school, they're
has to be part of the conspiracy.
Or they're just being taught the conspiracy, and then they're confused. They're just dark
everybody's
to the
just
truth?
operating under the assumption we live on a spinning ball hurtling through space, and somehow water sticks to the ball. But what we are saying is that we were taught that at a young age. We are now questioning that. Okay.
Do you believe in gravity?
Oh,
Gravity is easily explained with buoyancy and density. So an object falls because it's more dense, or it rises and floats because of buoyancy.
Hold on, I have a great question.
Okay.
So, if I remember, first time you were in here, Andrew, you just said we were taught this from a young age. Don't you have a religious tie-in to this, if I'm not mistaken? Didn't you say that this flat Earth proves there's a God?
Flat Earth, was hidden from people. The number one reason I believe, and many believe, is because if we suddenly learn that we are special, it's flat, it's stationary, everything's close, then we have a creator.
Okay,
And
hold
so-
right there.
Okay.
Let me tell you. So I was taught all through my elementary school up till I was 14 years old that the Bible was real, it was Church of Christ, and at some point in my adulthood, I realized that it's all malarkey,
Right.
right? And I'm breaking away from what I was taught as a child.
And I was not taught that. I was
Okay,
not
so-
taught
okay,
the
gotcha.
Bible. I was kind of like in this weird ambiguity. I had a sense of a creator growing up, but it was not taught to me, not pushed on me. My mom, what's your mom? Oh, she's a Catholic.
I
but
gotcha.
Did she ever go to church?
I
Did
got
I ever
you.
go?
Let's-
No.
let's get back
But
to
if we're under this,
Later on is when I came to the quote unquote truth of the Bible. Okay.
So is the Catholic Church part of the conspiracy?
Oh my God. I mean, the Catholic Church is run by pedophile
We
demons
agree.
at the top.
I agree with you.
Pedophile
Absolutely.
demons at the top.
Absolutely. Not demons, just
Well,
horrible people.
men who are controlled by evil
There
forces
is
and
no
who
such
have
thing as a
it,
demon.
And-
wolves
and-
in sheep's clothing.
And
But
so,
I do
but
want
the
to say
church,
something.
of course, also these days. So in the 1500s, when people realized the sun was the center of the solar system, that was the place where science and philosophy deviated. Prior to that, the church was actually where you went to go seek
Yep.
the truth of all kinds,
Yep.
right? And they did great science, and all the way through that moment in time. And starting at that moment, there was a divergence. And the church has, in recent years, tried to, while retaining some sense of faith, which I don't share, they have simultaneously tried to embrace the self-evident realities that are around us, all the time. And so groups like the Vatican and most large organized religions have their own science groups. There's a Vatican astronomer that happened to be on Penn and Teller's program called Bullshit.
Oh,
And,
yeah, we gotta pop
I got
that.
it.
That's
Okay.
all right.
That's all right.
You were talking about these people were on the
Penn and Teller's
Penn and
BS.
Teller's BS show, yeah.
BS, yeah, and and they interviewed the church, the Vatican astronomer, and they would ask him, most people don't realize that most of the large religious organizations in the country now completely endorse the fundamental aspects of science.
Right.
They try to walk it carefully to make sure they still say faith is fine, but they don't try to argue with scientific reality.
This is a sign for I'm gonna take a couple of phone calls
Okay.
before we wind this
Great.
up, all right? And we appreciate you both being here. Hi, caller, what's up? I don't know why you're all hanging up. Never mind, we're not taking phone calls. Is there anything else, Andrew, you wanted to get out there before
Yeah.
we got about 6 minutes?
Okay.
There is something I wanted to say to the Christians who are listening. So you're a Christian, you're listening to this, maybe you haven't really looked into flat earth, you're wondering, you're curious. Most Christians, I would say, today, I'm speaking to you Christians listening, you know that the evolutionary Big Bang model was a bunch of BS to destroy our creator, right? Right? Okay. So why would those same people all of a sudden, no, with the shape of the earth, oh, we're good there. They're not lying to us on that. So I want you to really think about that. And there are many scriptures that prove flat, stationary earth. So if you're a Christian, look into flat earth. And there are pastors who have been fired over flat earth. There's a prominent one that just got fired. And there was no discussion. He was well loved by the congregation. They simply said, we found out that you went to a flat earth conference, you're gone. And so there was no discussion of, why do you believe this? Show us why, can the Bible back it up? Yes, it can. So look into it, look into the Word, and you will be surprised what you find.
I'm still confused by something that you said earlier, but you this localized sun,
Right.
That's like maybe a rear projected or whatever.
Possibly.
So if the sun is not far away and not large, how do you explain something like a Henway?
A what?
A Henway.
What's a Henway?
Oh, about 5 pounds.
He's done that joke.
I knew it. I knew I was walking
See,
into that.
and here's where I have a disconnect with you, Andrew, and I really do appreciate you doing this show because you're interesting. Is you're going on the perception that the Bible is true.
And well, in fact, you used the word.
And the Bible has,
prove.
I don't know the number, but it's somewhere around 400 or 500 contradictions.
So I want to make a point. Look, flat Earth is not. It's something that a lot of atheists discover because they already knew that NASA was full of BS. Okay,
Right.
they already knew we didn't go to the moon. They knew that 9/11 was an inside job by a powerful elite. It was an easy transition to go, what else are they lying to me about? And now does flat Earth match my observations? Oh wait, it does. And so they're seeing the indoctrination, they come to it, and then all of a sudden they go, whoa, they have a moment where they're like, maybe I need to look at other religions, okay? Maybe I need to look at religion and throw out all the religiosity, but get to the heart of the matter. I think we have a creator, because if we're flat and stationary, then something's very amiss, and that's up to each individual person. Flat Earth is not ruled by the Bible, and the Bible's not ruled by flat Earth, but you do come to a sense of creator when you discover flat Earth. I don't know of anyone who is a flat earther who hasn't kind of had that moment of introspection.
We'll all agree with you there.
Richard, you had something to say?
Yeah,
We'll
well-
start to wrap up here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, and so we said a couple things that are bothersome to me. One was that the scriptures prove something. So that when we're having discussion of what is
I was
data
talking
show.
directly to Christians who are coming from a biblical perspective. That's
But
what I was talking
But the other
to.
thing that you mentioned was that 9/11 was an inside job, and so we were you spent a lot of time saying which conspiracy theories you didn't believe in, like are there aliens or other things.
Yeah.
But you've just thrown out another one that you apparently do believe in, which is that 9/11 was an inside job.
I want to know why Anderson Cooper keeps filming, interviewing, shooting victim
'Cause he's gay.
family members on green screen. That's what I want to know.
On green screen.
Anderson
okay.
Cooper, why do you
But the
keep...
point is, your conspiracy gets wider and wider. For you to, I don't know how
No.
those two things are related. But again, if you're now saying, okay, Anderson Cooper is a part of this conspiracy,
More people.
there's more people and more people and more people and more people. So not only are you arguing against things that literally my children can debunk, having been to the polls, but also that these super wide conspiracies have to include
And these arms are all the way up.
Yeah.
Your children went to the pole. I can go to what's called the pole. It's a stick in the ground in Antarctica. That
Where
doesn't
you
mean it's the
see-
pole.
No, it is if my child sits out and films a little sequence where we get up at what everybody's watches say is 6 a.m. and the sun is over there. And then we sit down for lunch and the sun is 90 degrees further
Over
down
there.
to the right. And at dinner it's 90 degrees further to the right. And when we get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, it's down to the south. And so it goes
okay.
completely around
so,
you.
I don't
And we
believe
were there for
I don't
days.
believe
If he
there's-
took you to the south, if he
Hold
took
on.
you to the pole, no, my show. If he took you to the pole and you saw it with your own eyes, would you then question your theory?
there should be hundreds of videos of the 24-hour sun in the
Videos.
south.
Videos
There literally are. What
There
you're talking
literally
about.
are.
You guys are confusing the 24-hour sun videos of the north. Yes, there
No.
are 24 hours because you have a flat disk. The sun in the summer, in the north's summer, the sun is up here. That's why you're seeing it 24/7.
I have twice been to a place called the Amundsen Scott South Pole Base at the South Pole.
Right.
People go there. There's hundreds of people who go there every year. There's
Right.
people who even winter over at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Base, and there's a dozen or two other bases around Antarctica. From all of those places, you see this effect, and from all of those places, people post videos and photos of the 24-hour sun.
Show it to me. Show me the 24-hour
Go
sun.
look online.
This is a time lapse.
That one you can find
There's
yourself.
two. There's two I've seen, and they're both highly
All right.
suspect.
Listen, okay.
Do you understand that
We
you're just the words that you say? You're dangerous.
I've
Like
seen this one.
I like you as a novelty for our show, but like misinformation for our community and our civilization
Right.
is just dangerous.
I mean,
you
I
know,
agree.
and the idea that I don't want to take the time to make myself an expert in a subject. So rather what I would do is I will pick something new, I will change all the rules that we agree on, and then I feel good about myself. I understand your need to feel good about
There it
yourself
is.
There
because
it
someone
is.
has done
That-
something
that's
cool
the
for
South
you,
Pole.
but
Yeah, that's the South Pole. That's like the one video you can find. If you can find me hundreds or
Okay.
even 10,
All
do
right.
it.
We can find 10 for
Find me
sure.
10. No, you can't.
All right, listen.
I want you
Listen.
to find me. Find me that's
Listen.
a
All right,
nice
listen. I
rolly.
I feel sorry for I feel sorry for people who believe in a lot of conspiracies because it must be like Daniel's head a little bit. Andrew, I appreciate you coming in here.
Thank you.
You're a nice person, and I apologize again for losing my temper last
No,
time
you
you were
didn't.
here.
You did. Oh, last time, yeah, maybe.
Excuse me. What have I done wrong? Hold on. I've stayed out. I haven't talked very much.
Yeah, you've been awesome. I
Okay,
told
good.
You've
You're
been
just
awesome.
sitting way up there. That's
But
all.
Okay.
some friends that listened to the last one, they said I came off like the most level-headed person. You
That's
guys
great.
came
Oh,
off
that's
like
great.
a bunch of dumb.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. You might want to look into comedy conspiracy.
No.
Richard, I want to say one thing. You probably shouldn't tell people where your car is parked. They might steal it. Second of all, I'm sorry that you wasted that money going out into outer space. What a dummy.
Yeah.
What a dummy. The new game coming out is Shroud of the Avatar, which will be downloadable, I guess, on all the
It's
platforms.
already downloadable, but you can get boxes on Amazon as of yesterday.
As of yesterday.
Well, I would
Congrats.
like to. Is there,
Cool.
is there an Xbox version?
No.
No. Okay.
And I know that you said, and I think it might have been off air, that you are doing a Halloween party for your children now.
Yeah.
You are known for, you were kind of legendary in this
Yeah.
town.
Okay.
I'm anxious for your children to grow up a little bit so you can get back to doing
Give us
the.
10 years.
All right, because all right, I want an invitation.
And I still believe in UFOs. All right, listen, we got to go. Everybody, thank you. We're not
The show's
going.
not over.
We're coming back
Yeah,
and
yeah,
giving
yeah.
away huge
Chill out.
prizes.
We
We
have,
got another contest from CJ.
We have 3-day ACL passes coming up, and